Hello and welcome to the Pretty Good Gaming Daily Triple. That's your no shit gaming news video. 3 news stories in one video with 0 faff. Crunch culture is a popular topic in the games industry and always seems to happen with the biggest games. One of the biggest games around has regularly been accused of enabling crunch culture, and that game is, of course, Cyberpunk 2077.
That's why I love Nestle Crunch.
The fact that developer CD Projekt Red is crunching shouldn't be anything new to you, but apparently things are ramping up in the weeks before release. As always, Jason Schreier is the man behind this news story and explains that CD Projekt has gone back on its word from a year ago. His article is available on Bloomberg, but it's paywalled, so the quotes I'm showing on screen will be pulled from other sites. According to Schreier, an email was sent around to CDPR staff indicating that they were all expected to work 6 days a week up until launch, and this is mandatory. Back in summer 2019, co-CEO and co-founder Marcin Nowinski said, "We want to be more humane and treat people with respect, and that they will follow a non-obligatory crunch policy." Then, during an investor call in January this year, fellow CEO Adam Kaczynski said crunch will happen. "We try to limit crunch as much as possible, but it is the final stage. We try to be reasonable in this regard, but yes, unfortunately." Clearly, the situation has now changed, and studio head Adam Budowski says, "Starting today, the entire development studio is in overdrive, and that the devs are expected to complete your typical amount of work and one day of the weekend." Crunch is always a controversial topic, and it comes in many forms, some of which are significantly worse than others. In this case, the staff at CDPR are being paid for this overtime, so at least that's something, but the fact that this is now mandatory makes it a bit more tricky. Budowski is clearly aware that this news will be met with a lot of backlash. "I take it upon myself to receive the full backlash for this decision. I know this is in direct opposition to what we've said about crunch. It's also in direct opposition to what I personally grew to believe a while back. The crunch should never be the answer, but we've extended all other possible means of navigating the situation." While that acknowledgement of the situation is appreciated, it still doesn't excuse the fact that crunch is happening and has been happening for a long time, which is just a failure of management. The game is due for release on November the 19th after being delayed twice, but delays do not help alleviate crunch as many people believe, because these devs are always told things like, "Keep the momentum going, one last push, we're almost there." Many of us have worked weekends or gone through unpaid overtime without it being such a big deal, but that still doesn't make it right. CD Projekt's glowing reputation in the industry will keep them going, and the game will still sell millions, but the more respected a developer is, the further they have to fall. As far as I'm concerned, if the devs aren't being forced to work overtime and are paid appropriately if they choose to do so, then I wouldn't consider it crunch. It has to be a choice. But even then, there is usually a toxic undercurrent of pressure from executives and other team members that you're letting the side down, and there are many horror stories out there which make the whole situation much murkier. The devs at CDPR aren't being given a choice here, so in my opinion, it's more of a problematic situation, but I'm hesitant to come down on either side too hard without more information. A major problem here is that CD Projekt has gone against its earlier promises to avoid obligatory crunch culture. If they've broken this promise, it begs the question what others they may break. What do you think? Is this another example of terrible crunch that should be stopped, or is this one of the less extreme cases? Is this acceptable, or is a 6-day work week really not that bad? And most importantly, has this even influenced your decision to buy the game? Because I really doubt it. And next up, wrestling and gaming have a large overlapping fanbase if my Twitter feed is anything to go by. Personally, I couldn't really care less about wrestling, but this news story has got WWE 2K in a headlock. One of the wrestlers featured in the game is Randy Orton, whose outfit is basically just a pair of Speedos. But a key part of his look is his tattoos, which has got 2K in a bit of hot water. For those of you who don't know, when you get a tattoo, you do not own that tattoo as an IP. The artist who designed it owns the art. It's a bit of a tricky legal situation, especially if you had a hand in creating the design. The artist behind some of Randy Orton's tattoos, Catherine Alexander, has launched a lawsuit against 2K and WWE for supposedly breaching her copyright by using the tattoos on Orton's character model. Alexander tattooed Orton between 2002 and 2008, and the tattoos in question are tribal tattoos on Orton's forearm, a Bible verse on his arm, a dove, a rose, and a skull. I'm sure any number of tattoo artists could claim copyright on those designs. She's done battle with WWE in the past when in 2009 the company intended to release a fake tattoo sleeve based on Orton's as merch. At the time, she was offered $450 for extensive rights to use Orton's tattoos, but she rejected this and continued to deny permission to do so. Alexander now argues that her artwork was produced without her permission, but WWE and 2K argue that they had an implied license that falls under fair use and that the tattoos are considered de minimis to the game, meaning that they are inconsequential or material to the game as a whole. In regards to fair use, Alexander makes the case that the tattoos were created to be displayed on Orton's body body, and WWE 2K does the same thing, meaning that it's not transformative in terms of education, journalism, history, criticism, humor, and other informative endeavors. Take-Two, the parent company of 2K, faced a very similar situation back in March with NBA player LeBron James. Take-Two won the case back then, but it's unclear what will happen here as the case has gone to a jury. Technically, Alexander is right in that the IP which she owns has been copied without her permission, but to me it seems like a bit of a stretch to go to court over this. Orton's tattoos are part of his character identity, yes, but they are only one part of a larger game with many more characters. To me, this doesn't seem to be a case of an evil corporation stealing someone's art, although it does pain me to say that. There's a big question as to whether or not Alexander actually suffered any damages, i.e. lost any money, due to her art being used in the game, which likely didn't happen. It's also worth noting that she hasn't even practiced tattooing since 2009. If she wins, I think it's unlikely that 2K will be forced to amend their character design and will most likely just throw a load of money at the situation. The cleanest way to handle all this in my mind would be to give any artists a small royalty if their art is used in the game or subsequent games. The most interesting thing to come out of this will be if this sets a precedent for the recreation of real people with tattoos in video games. Beyond sports games where many athletes are covered in tattoos, my first thought goes to Norman Reedus in Death Stranding, who had his tattoos on Sam Porter Bridges' character model. Could we start seeing more issues with artists thinking their art is being misused? What do you think? Is 2K in the wrong here, or is Catherine Alexandria just being plain greedy? And finally, Bethesda may be under Microsoft's umbrella now, but we still know virtually nothing about two of its biggest games. Elder Scrolls 6 is still years away, but before we see that, we're meant to get Bethesda's new IP, Starfield. Leaked images have appeared online on sites like Imager and Reddit, but bear in mind that they could very easily be fake. Apparently, anytime these images were posted to Bethesda Discord servers, they were promptly taken down by admins, which certainly lends some credibility to them. There are 3 images in total, supposedly from a build from about 2 years ago, a Bethesda-style third-person shot of an astronaut, a spaceship, and a close-up of some HUD. There's also an additional third-person shot of the astronaut, which looks very similar but from a slightly different angle or location. The astronaut picture resembles what could be in-game footage based on where the camera sits, and shows the character outside some kind of building or vessel with planets in the distance. The HUD seems to indicate that oxygen, carbon dioxide, and possibly even gravity management will be a thing, which sounds like it could be a real pain in the ass or a very interesting mechanic. And then there's the spaceship, which looks like a spaceship. It's big, it's bulky, but there's nothing else in the image. These images actually came out a few days ago, but I didn't cover it because there's not really much to say about them other than what you can already see for yourself, but there you have it. Who needs a 10-minute video when you have the final segment of a daily triple? And that's it for today. If you like this no shit format, go ahead and give the video a like to give it a boost, hit subscribe and the bell to stay notified about all future installments. Toss a coin to your YouTuber over at patreon.com/prettygoodgaming. I've been Henry Cooper. That's all for today. Bye for now.